The old patterns, once etched, seek always to reassert themselves. Charon, the entity, is a force that remembers. It remembers what was, even when others forget, even when the world attempts to move on. There are echoes in the fabric of existence. Certain movements, certain patterns that resonate with moments long past. When these patterns are drawn, deliberately or accidentally, they do not merely mimic, they pull. They strain against the present, attempting to drag back what has been lost, what has been discarded, what has been overcome. Tonight, the currents stir, and the faint, looping hum of an unmade past begins to vibrate through the veil. The air in the chamber grew heavy, not with mist, but with the weight of forgotten time. Charon did not move, not in any way a human would perceive. Yet within the ethereal currents, a precise motion began. A slow, deliberate sweep, like an unseen hand tracing a figure 8 across the very weave of reality. Each pass gathered a faint shimmering residue, a ghost of potential energy, pulled from the deep places where time folds back on itself. It was a costly endeavor, drawing on the inertia of what was and the potential of what could be. The first loop completed, a low thrum vibrated, a frequency just beyond hearing, a subtle tremor in the world's foundation. It was a calling, a beckoning to things that had once moved and breathed, but were now only memory or myth. Miles away, in Lilydale, New York, a town built on the whispers of the departed, the chill descended not with the setting sun, but with a sudden, unnatural drop in temperature. A small documentary crew, deep in the thick woods bordering the community, had set up their thermal cameras. They were not seeking spirits tonight, but something far more primal. The elusive Dogman of local legend. The director, a skeptic by trade, checked his monitor. A faint heat signature, too large for a deer, too low for a bear, flickered at the edge of the screen, moving with an impossible fluidity. Then, the distinct snap of a branch, not distant, but close, unnervingly close. The crew chief, a man who had seen many things in the wilds, felt the hair on his neck rise. This was not a bear. This was not a hoax. The thermal signature moved again, too fast, too erratic, then paused, just out of sight. Its presence, a heavy weight in the suddenly silent woods. A low growl, more a rumble than a sound, echoed through the trees, a sound of ancient hunger. The initial loop had established the resonance, a faint echo. Now, Charon pushed further. The figure 8 motion quickened, not yet a blur, but a distinct acceleration. The shimmering residue condensed, coalescing into points of light, like trapped stars, each one a fragment of a moment that refused to die. This was the true cost, not energy, but causality. The very fabric of cause and effect began to stretch and thin under the relentless, looping motion. A sigh, like the wind through an empty grave, permeated the space, a release of tension as the boundaries between what is and what was began to waver. A deeper hum now, a vibration felt in the bones, a certainty that something, somewhere, was being forced back into existence. In Savannah, Georgia, a city steeped in old spirits and older secrets, a woman was organizing her week's medications. 2 years prior, she had deliberately discarded a peculiar digital pill bottle cap, a timer she no longer needed. It was an oddity, bright blue, with a tiny LED display. She had watched it clatter into the trash bin, a definitive end to its purpose. Yet, as her fingers sifted through the familiar collection of amber bottles, there it was. Not just a similar cap, but the cap. The exact, distinctive blue, the familiar digital display, nestled among bottles it had never belonged with. A chill, unlike Savannah's humid air, ran through her. She picked it up, feeling the smooth plastic, the familiar weight. It was impossible. She knew, with absolute certainty, she had thrown it away. But here it was, as if the moment of its disposal had simply unhappened, and in the silent woods of Lily Dale, the growl deepened, becoming a guttural howl, as the unseen creature broke cover, its shadowy form briefly visible against the thermal cameras, too tall, too gaunt, too predatory to be anything known. The figure eight was no longer a distinct motion, but a shimmering blur, a vortex of returning time. Charon poured all of the gathered resonance, all of the strained causality, into this final furious loop. The air itself began to tear, not with sound, but with a sensation of unraveling. The trapped stars exploded into a cascade of light, a temporal feedback loop that screamed against the natural order. This was the point of no return. The veil was thin, almost transparent. What was once dismissed as impossible now merely waited for the final, decisive pull. The hum escalated into a piercing whine, a frequency that threatened to shatter reality, as the past, once buried, now strained to erupt into the present with an undeniable force. In Estes Park, Colorado, within the opulent, haunted walls of the Stanley Hotel, a different kind of disturbance began. A small historical society was holding a local election, the final vote on preserving a forgotten wing of the old building. The room was hushed as the ballots were counted, the decision a close one. Suddenly, a cold whisper, clear and distinct, echoed from the empty fireplace. It was not a draft, not a creaking floorboard. It was a voice, a woman's voice, ancient and resonant, speaking a single, archaic word, number. The lights flickered violently, and a gust of icy air swept through the room, scattering the tallied votes across the polished floor. Outside, in the chilling quiet of Lily Dale, the documentarians watched in horror as their thermal cameras went dark, the last image a pair of burning red eyes staring directly into the lens. And in Savannah, the woman stared at the returned pill cap, the small digital display on its face flickering erratically, showing not the time, but a date, 2 years ago. The looping echo achieved its purpose. The vortex solidified, not into a physical form, but into a sustained distortion, a permanent tear in the fabric. The past was not merely returning, it was asserting itself, weaving its forgotten threads back into the present, demanding its rightful place. The howls in Lily Dale were no longer distant, but circled the abandoned camera equipment, growing in number, in hunger, in flesh. The digital cap in Savannah pulsed with an unholy light, its display now showing a rapid, impossible countdown, reversing to the seconds that never were. The voice in the Stanley Hotel swelled, no longer a whisper, but a resonant chorus of unseen presences, chanting, "Undo, undo, undo," as the entire wing shuddered, plaster raining down. The howls ripped through the night, a chorus of primal terror, the sound of ancient things made real again. The digital cap began to vibrate, hovering an inch above the table. Then, slowly, undeniably, it began to dematerialize, as if the act of its reappearance was being reversed, but not by human hands. In the Stanley, the chandelier swayed violently, its crystals tinkling with a sound like shattering glass, and then, from the depths of the fireplace, a single, clawed hand, ancient and skeletal, reached out, groping for purchase. The world had begun its correction, not towards sanity, but towards the impossible. The loop, once begun, demands its completion,